They told her to give up her son for adoption until the baby's genes saved the CEO's life. This is the story of Jennifer Collins, a 19-year-old mother-to-be who had lost everything: her family, her job, her home, and was sitting outside the social worker's office, being fiercely pressured to sign adoption papers for her baby. The social worker called her choice, selfish, and irresponsible, given her poverty. What Jennifer, the social worker, and the world didn't know was that the life of the child Jennifer fought so hard to keep, her son Lucas, would eventually become the key to saving the life of Sophia, the beloved daughter of CEO Walter Chen, a man whose wealth could buy anything but a compatible bone marrow match. The fluorescent lights of Memorial General Hospital's maternity ward hummed with their usual monotonous buzz as Jennifer Collins sat in the cold plastic chair outside the social worker's office. She was 19 years old, 8 months pregnant, and completely alone in a city where she knew almost no one. Her hands rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick and move, each movement a reminder of the impossible choice she was being told she had to make. Through the frosted glass door, she could hear voices. Sharp, professional voices discussing her future as if she weren't a person, but a problem to be solved, a case file to be closed, a statistic to be managed. The door opened and Ms. Rebecca Thornton emerged, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and glasses that seemed designed to make her look as intimidating as possible. She had been a social worker at Memorial General for 23 years and had seen hundreds of young mothers in situations similar to Jennifer's. In her experience, girls like Jennifer, poor girls, with no support system and no prospects, always made the same choice in the end. They gave up their babies to families who could provide what they could not. It was the practical choice, the responsible choice, the only choice, really. "Jennifer, come in, please," Ms. Thornton said, her voice carrying the kind of false warmth that made the coldness underneath even more apparent. Jennifer stood slowly, her back aching from the weight of the pregnancy. She wore the same clothes she had worn for the past 3 days, a donated maternity shirt from the hospital's charity closet and sweatpants that were 2 sizes too big. Her blonde hair, which she used to keep carefully styled, now hung limp and unwashed around her shoulders. She looked exactly like what she was, a teenager who had run out of options. The office was small and cluttered with filing cabinets and motivational posters that felt more depressing than inspiring. Ms. Thornton gestured to a chair across from her desk while she settled into her own seat and opened a thick manila folder. "I've been reviewing your case," Ms. Thornton began, not looking up from the papers. "And I think we need to have an honest conversation about your situation." "Okay," Jennifer said quietly. "You're 19 years old. You have no high school diploma, no job, no permanent address. The father of the baby is not in the picture and has made it clear he wants no involvement. Your own family has, unfortunately, chosen not to support you. Is that all accurate?" Each word was like a small cut. Jennifer nodded, not trusting her voice. "Given these circumstances, I think we need to seriously consider adoption as the best option for both you and the baby." "I don't want to give up my baby," Jennifer said, the words coming out stronger than she expected. Ms. Thornton sighed, the kind of sigh that suggested she had heard this exact statement hundreds of times before, and knew it was based on emotion rather than logic. "Jennifer, I understand that you have feelings about this, but feelings don't pay rent. Feelings don't buy diapers or formula. Feelings don't provide health care. This baby deserves a stable home with 2 parents who can provide everything they need." "I can provide what my baby needs. How?" Ms. Thornton's question was blunt. "You're currently staying in a women's shelter. You have no income. You have no education. You have no support system. How exactly do you plan to care for an infant?" Jennifer felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had cried enough over the past 8 months. Cried when her boyfriend disappeared after she told him she was pregnant. Cried when her parents told her she was no longer welcome in their home. Cried when she realized she was completely and utterly alone. But she hadn't cried about her decision to keep her baby. That was the one thing she was certain about. "I'll find a way," Jennifer said. "That's not a plan. That's hope. And hope doesn't feed a baby." "Ms." Thornton leaned forward, her expression softening slightly, in what was probably meant to be compassionate, but came across as condescending. "Listen to me. I've worked with hundreds of young mothers in your situation. The ones who try to do this alone. They struggle. They fall behind. They can't find work because they have no one to watch the baby. They can't afford childcare because they have no work. It's a cycle of poverty that's nearly impossible to escape. So, I should just give up? I prefer to call it making a mature, selfless decision. There are wonderful families on our adoption waiting list. Families with resources, with stable homes, with the ability to give your child opportunities you simply cannot provide. But I'm the mother. Biologically, yes. But motherhood is more than biology. It's about providing, protecting, nurturing. Can you honestly tell me you're in a position to do any of those things?" Jennifer looked down at her belly, at the baby who had been kicking and moving throughout this entire conversation. She thought about the past 8 months, about every doctor's appointment she had walked to because she couldn't afford bus fare, about every meal she had skipped to make sure she could afford the prenatal vitamins, about every night she had slept in the shelter, listening to the sounds of other desperate people around her, wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. But then she would feel the baby move, and all those doubts would disappear. This was her child, her son. She had felt him grow from nothing into a tiny human being with a heartbeat and hiccups and a personality she was already starting to recognize. How could she give that up? "I need to think about it," Jennifer said finally. Miss Thornton's expression hardened. "You don't have much time to think. You're 8 months pregnant. If you're going to pursue adoption, we need to start the process now so we can find the right family." "I said I need to think about it." "Jennifer, I'm trying to help you." "Are you?" "Because it feels like you're trying to convince me I'm not good enough to be a mother." "That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply being realistic about the challenges you'll face. Maybe I want to face those challenges. Maybe I want to fight for my son." Ms. Thornton closed the folder with a sharp snap. "Fine. You're an adult, technically, so I can't force you to make any decision. But I'm going to be honest with you, Jennifer. In my professional opinion, keeping this baby is the most selfish thing you could do. That child deserves better than what you can offer." The words hung in the air like poison. Jennifer stood up slowly, her hands instinctively protective over her belly. "This meeting is over," she said. "Jennifer, wait. I didn't mean to upset you." "Yes, you did. You meant to make me feel small and incapable and worthless, so I would do what you think is best. But you don't know me. You don't know what I'm capable of." She walked out of the office, through the hallway, past the nurses' station, where several staff members watched her with a mixture of pity and judgment. She made it to the hospital's main entrance before the tears finally came, hot and angry and overwhelming. She sat down on a bench outside, not caring that it was cold and starting to rain. She let herself cry, really cry. For the first time since that conversation with her parents 3 weeks ago, when they had told her she was a disappointment and a failure, and they wanted nothing to do with her or her baby. "Are you all right?" A voice interrupted her tears. Jennifer looked up to see an elderly man standing nearby, holding an umbrella. He was in his 70s, dressed in an expensive suit that looked out of place in this part of the city, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners with concern. "I'm fine," Jennifer lied, wiping her face with the sleeve of her donated shirt. "You don't look fine. You look like someone who just received some very bad news." He moved the umbrella to cover both of them from the rain. "I'm Walter. Walter Chen. And you are?" "Jennifer. And I don't mean to be rude, but I really just want to be alone right now." "I understand. But I also can't in good conscience leave a very pregnant young woman sitting in the rain crying. May I at least sit down?" Jennifer shrugged, which Walter took as permission. He settled onto the bench beside her, careful to keep the umbrella positioned to protect her from the rain. "I hate this hospital," Walter said conversationally. "I've spent far too much time here over the years. My wife was treated here before she passed. My daughter comes here for her treatments. These walls hold a lot of difficult memories for me." "Why are you here today?" Jennifer asked despite herself. "My daughter. She has leukemia. We're waiting on some test results to see if the latest treatment is working." He said it matter-of-factly, but Jennifer could hear the worry underneath. "But enough about me. Would you like to talk about why you were crying?" "Not really." "Fair enough. Then may I tell you something instead?" Jennifer nodded. "When my daughter was first diagnosed 5 years ago, everyone told me to prepare for the worst. They said the cancer was aggressive, that the prognosis was poor, that I should start making arrangements. Do you know what I did? What? I ignored them, every single one of them. Because they were looking at statistics and probabilities and medical charts, but I was looking at my daughter. And I knew she was stronger than any statistic. I knew she was a fighter, and I was right. She's still fighting, 5 years later, defying every prediction those doctors made. That's a nice story, but I'm not sure what it has to do with me. I think you do know. I think someone in there just told you that you couldn't do something. That you weren't strong enough or prepared enough or good enough. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes the people who claim to know best are wrong." Jennifer felt fresh tears welling up. "The social worker thinks I should give up my baby for adoption. She says I can't provide what he needs." "And what do you think?" "I think she might be right. I have nothing. No money, no family, no plan. How am I supposed to raise a baby with nothing?" Walter was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you another story?" "Sure. 30 years ago, I came to this country with my wife and daughter. We had exactly $200, 2 suitcases, and no English. Everyone told us we should go back, that we would never make it, that America was too hard, too expensive, too unwelcoming. Do you know what we did? What? We ignored them. We worked 3 jobs each. We slept 4 hours a night. We ate rice and vegetables for every meal for 2 years. And we built a life. Not because we had resources or connections or advantages, but because we refused to believe that we couldn't. But that's different. You had your wife. You had each other. That's true. But you have something too. You have determination. I can see it in you. You didn't come out here to give up. You came out here to cry and be angry, and then figure out your next step. How do you know that? Because you're still here. You didn't run away. You didn't collapse. You're sitting here, pregnant and alone and scared. But you're still here. That takes strength. Jennifer looked at this stranger who had stopped to talk to her, who had shared his umbrella and his stories, who seemed to see something in her that no one else did. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Good. Being scared means you understand the responsibility. It means you take this seriously. The people who worry me are the ones who aren't scared, who think parenting is easy. You're already better than them. The social worker said I'm being selfish by keeping my baby." Walter's expression hardened. "That social worker is wrong. Selfishness is giving up when things are hard. Selfishness is choosing comfort over responsibility. What you're doing, trying to keep your child despite impossible circumstances, that's not selfish. That's love. But what if I fail? What if I can't do it? Then you'll have tried, and that's worth something. But I don't think you'll fail. Do you want to know why? Why? Because you're already thinking about your baby's needs over your own. You're already making sacrifices. You're already putting someone else first. That's what makes a good parent. Not money or education or a perfect house. Love and commitment. And you clearly have both." A nurse came out of the hospital entrance. "Mr. Chen, your daughter's doctor is ready to see you." Walter stood up slowly, handing the umbrella to Jennifer. "Keep this. I have another one in my car." "I can't take your umbrella?" "Sure you can. Consider it a loan. You can return it when you bring your baby to visit us." "Visit you?" "I have a feeling our paths will cross again, Jennifer. This city isn't as big as it seems." He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "If you ever need anything at all, you call that number, day or night." Jennifer looked at the card. "Chen Industries, CEO Walter Chen." She looked up at him in shock. "You're the CEO of Chen Industries?" "I'm a father who remembers what it was like to have nothing. The CEO title is just something that happened along the way." He smiled. "Take care of yourself and that baby, Jennifer. And don't let anyone convince you that you're not enough. You are exactly enough." He walked back into the hospital, leaving Jennifer sitting on the bench with his umbrella and his business card, and the first feeling of hope she had experienced in months. 3 weeks later, Jennifer gave birth to a healthy baby boy she named Lucas. The delivery was straightforward, but the aftermath was anything but. The hospital gave her 2 days to recover before discharging her back to the women's shelter with her newborn son, a few supplies, and a follow-up appointment she had no idea how she would get to. Ms. Thornton visited her room before she left, carrying adoption papers and a sympathetic expression that felt rehearsed. "Jennifer, it's not too late to reconsider. I have a wonderful couple who are desperate for a baby. They have a nursery ready, a college fund started, everything your son could ever need." Jennifer looked down at Lucas, sleeping peacefully in her arms, his tiny fist curled around her finger. "No," she said firmly. "He's my son. I'm keeping him." "You're making a mistake." "Maybe. But he's my mistake to make. Ms. Thornton left the papers on the bedside table anyway. In case you change your mind. Most young mothers do within the first few months when reality sets in." After she left, Jennifer tore up the papers and threw them in the trash. The women's shelter didn't allow newborns. That was the first reality that set in. Jennifer found herself and Lucas staying in a homeless family center, a crowded facility with inadequate heating and thin walls, and the constant sound of other babies crying. She had a corner of a room that she shared with 2 other mothers, each trying to care for their children in impossible circumstances. Finding work was even harder than she had imagined. Every interview ended the same way. "We'd love to hire you, but you have no childcare. Come back when you have reliable childcare." But childcare required money she didn't have from a job she couldn't get without childcare. It was exactly the cycle Miss Thornton had warned her about. Lucas was 6 weeks old when he got sick. It started as a mild cold, or so Jennifer thought. But within 24 hours, His breathing became labored, and his temperature spiked to 104 degrees. The shelter staff called an ambulance, and Jennifer found herself back at Memorial General Hospital, this time in the pediatric emergency room, watching doctors swarm around her tiny son. He has RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, the pediatric doctor explained. It's serious in infants. We're going to need to admit him. For how long? At least a week, maybe longer depending on how he responds to treatment. Jennifer felt her world tilting. I don't have insurance. I can't pay for this. We'll work something out. Right now, the priority is treating your son. They admitted Lucas to the pediatric intensive care unit. Jennifer stayed by his bedside, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, eating whatever the nurses brought her from the cafeteria, watching the monitors that tracked her son's every breath. On the third day, when Lucas's condition had stabilized but he was still struggling, Jennifer stepped out to use the bathroom. When she returned, she found Walter Chen standing by Lucas's bed, looking down at the baby with an expression of deep concern. Mr. Chen? What are you doing here? Walter turned to her with a sad smile. My daughter is 2 floors up. I was visiting her when I heard one of the nurses mention a young mother staying in the PICU with her baby. I had a feeling it might be you. You remembered me? Of course I remembered you. You made an impression. How are you holding up? Jennifer wanted to lie, to say she was fine, but she was so exhausted and so scared that the truth just came out. I'm drowning. Lucas is sick. I have no way to pay for this. The shelter won't let me back in with him when he's discharged because they don't allow sick children. I have nowhere to go and no way to take care of him. Sit down, Walter said gently, gesturing to the chair. Tell me everything. And she did. She told him about giving birth alone, about the shelter, about the impossible job search, about Miss Thornton's adoption papers that still haunted her. She told him about her fears that maybe everyone was right, that maybe she had made a selfish choice, that maybe Lucas would be better off with someone else. Walter listened to everything without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Jennifer, do you love your son? More than anything. And you want what's best for him? Of course. Then you need to let me help you. Mr. Chen, I can't ask you for money. I barely know you. You're not asking. I'm offering. And it's not charity, Jennifer. It's an investment. An investment in what? In potential. In courage. In the kind of mother who refuses to give up even when everything is stacked against her. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to make some calls. By the end of the day, Lucas's medical bills will be paid. I'm also going to arrange for you to have a place to stay when he's discharged. A real apartment, not a shelter. And I'm going to connect you with a job training program at one of my companies. Why would you do all this for me? Walter looked at Lucas, then back at Jennifer. Because 30 years ago, someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. They saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself. I've spent my life trying to pay that forward. You're just the latest recipient. I don't know what to say. Say thank you, and then focus all your energy on getting that baby healthy. Everything else I'll handle. Over the next week, as Lucas slowly recovered, Jennifer watched in amazement as Walter's promises materialized. The hospital's billing department informed her that an anonymous donor had covered all costs. A property manager called to tell her an apartment was waiting for her, fully furnished, with 3 months of rent prepaid. A human resources director from Chen Industries reached out about a paid training program in their accounting department with flexible hours and on-site childcare. It felt like a miracle. Or a dream. Jennifer kept waiting to wake up and find herself back in the shelter with nothing. Lucas was discharged after 8 days. Jennifer took him to the new apartment, a small but clean one-bedroom with windows that actually opened, and heating that actually worked, and silence that felt luxurious after months of constant noise. She set up the portable crib that had been left for her, put Lucas down for a nap, and sat on the couch in her new living room and cried. But this time they were tears of relief and gratitude and hope. The next morning she called the number on Walter's business card. "Mr. Chen, I don't know how to thank you." "You can start by calling me Walter. Mr. Chen makes me feel old. And you can thank me by taking full advantage of every opportunity I'm providing. No wasting it. Deal?" "Deal. Good. Now my assistant will be in touch about the training program. It starts next month, which gives you time to get settled with Lucas. In the meantime, focus on being a mom. You've earned that." The training program was exactly what Jennifer needed. 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, learning accounting and business management, with other young women who were also trying to build better lives. The on-site childcare was professional and loving, with caregivers who actually seemed to care about the children, rather than just supervising them. Jennifer threw herself into the program. She studied during Lucas's naps, practiced software skills late at night after he went to bed, asked questions in every class, volunteered for every extra assignment. She was determined to prove that Walter's faith in her wasn't misplaced. 3 months into the program, Jennifer was called into the director's office. She went in nervously, assuming she had done something wrong. "Jennifer, sit down," the director said with a smile. "I wanted to talk to you about your future here." "Is something wrong with my work?" "Wrong? No, quite the opposite. Your instructors tell me you're the top student in your cohort. You've mastered the software faster than anyone they've ever trained. Your accuracy is remarkable. Frankly, you're overqualified for the entry-level position we were planning to offer you." "I don't understand." "We'd like to accelerate your training and move you into a junior accountant position in our main office. It comes with a significant pay increase and full benefits, including health insurance for you and Lucas." Jennifer felt dizzy. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious." "You've earned this, Jennifer. Your work speaks for itself." "Can I ask you something? Did Mr. Chen, did he arrange this?" The director smiled. "Mr. Chen arranged for you to have the opportunity. But what you've done with that opportunity, that's all you. He doesn't give positions to people who don't earn them. You earned this." Jennifer started her new position 2 weeks later. The office was professional and busy, filled with people who treated her like a colleague rather than a charity case. She had her own desk, her own computer, her own responsibilities. For the first time since getting pregnant, she felt like a real person again, not just a problem to be solved. Lucas thrived in the company's childcare center. Jennifer would visit him during her lunch break, sitting in the bright, clean playroom and watching him interact with other babies. He was 6 months old now, healthy and happy, with her blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room. Life wasn't perfect. Money was still tight. There were still nights when Jennifer worried about the future, about what would happen if she lost her job, or if Lucas got sick again, or if any of the 1,000 things that could go wrong actually went wrong. But she was managing. More than managing. She was succeeding. 8 months after starting at Chen Industries, Jennifer was called into a meeting with Walter himself. She hadn't seen him since that day in the hospital, though she had sent him thank you notes and updates on Lucas's progress. His office was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was the kind of space that should have been intimidating, but Walter's warm greeting immediately put her at ease. "Jennifer, come in. Sit down. How's Lucas?" He's wonderful. Growing so fast I can barely keep him in clothes. And how are you? I'm good. Really good. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You've thanked me by proving me right. I knew you had potential. You've exceeded even my expectations. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. But I didn't call you here just to tell you that. I have something I need to discuss with you, something personal. Jennifer sat down, suddenly nervous. Okay. Walter pulled out a folder. Do you remember I mentioned my daughter? The one with leukemia? Yes, of course. How is she? Walter's expression darkened. Not well. The cancer has returned aggressively. She needs a bone marrow transplant, and soon. But finding a match has been nearly impossible. I'm so sorry. We've tested everyone in our family. No matches. We've searched the National Registry. Thousands of potential donors, no matches. The doctors say her genetic profile is unusual, a rare combination that makes finding a compatible donor extremely difficult. Jennifer didn't know what to say. The pain in Walter's eyes was heartbreaking. They've given her 6 months, maybe less without a transplant. Walter, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? He looked at her intently. Actually, there might be. It's a long shot, but the doctors suggested we test anyone who has had recent extensive contact with our family. Sometimes donor matches can be found in unexpected places. You want to test me? And Lucas. I know it's unlikely, but we're running out of options. Would you be willing? Of course. Anything to help. The testing was simple. Just a cheek swab for both Jennifer and Lucas. She didn't think much about it afterward. The chances of either of them being a match seemed impossibly small. 2 weeks later, Walter called her at work, his voice shaking with emotion. Jennifer, can you come to my office right away? It's urgent. She rushed up to the executive floor, her heart pounding with worry. When she entered Walter's office, she found him sitting at his desk, with tears streaming down his face. Standing beside him was a woman in her early 40s, thin and pale from illness, wearing a scarf over her bald head. Jennifer, this is my daughter, Sophia. Sophia smiled weakly. It's nice to finally meet you. My father has told me so much about you. It's nice to meet you too. Walter, what's going on? Is something wrong? Something is very, very right. Walter stood up and walked around his desk. The test results came back. Jennifer, Lucas is a perfect match for Sophia. Jennifer felt the words but couldn't quite process them. What? Your son can save my daughter's life. He can be her bone marrow donor. But how? How is that possible? The doctors say it's incredibly rare, a 1 in 10 million chance. But Lucas has the exact genetic markers Sophia needs. He's not just compatible, he's perfect. Jennifer looked at Sophia, seeing the hope in her eyes, the desperate need. What does this mean? What would Lucas have to do? A doctor who had been waiting quietly in the corner stepped forward. Ms. Collins, I'm Dr. Rachel Kim, Sophia's oncologist. The procedure for Lucas would be relatively simple. He would be under anesthesia. We would extract bone marrow from his hip bone using a needle. The whole thing takes about an hour. He would be sore for a few days, but would recover completely, with no long-term effects. And for Sophia? For Sophia, this could be the difference between life and death. If the transplant is successful, and with a match this perfect, the chances are excellent. She could be cancer-free within a year. Jennifer looked at her son, who she had brought with her from the child care center, playing with a toy on the floor of Walter's office. This tiny human, barely 8 months old, could save someone's life. Of course, she said without hesitation. Of course Lucas can be the donor. When do you need to do the procedure? Walter let out a sob of relief. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. You have no idea what this means. You saved Lucas's life when he was sick. You gave us everything when we had nothing. This is the least we can do. Sophia walked over and took Jennifer's hands. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You're giving me a chance to see my children grow up. There aren't words for what that means. You have children. 2. A boy and a girl. 7 and 9. They're the reason I've been fighting so hard. Jennifer thought about Miss Thornton's adoption papers, about how close she had come to giving Lucas up, about all the people who had told her she was making a mistake by keeping him. If she had given him up, he wouldn't be here now. He wouldn't be able to save Sophia's life. He wouldn't be able to give 2 children their mother back. I'm glad I kept him, Jennifer said quietly. Everyone told me I was being selfish, but if I had given him up for adoption, he wouldn't be able to help you now. Walter squeezed her shoulder. You weren't being selfish. You were being his mother. And thank God you were, because that decision is going to save my daughter's life. The transplant was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving them time to prepare Lucas and to get Sophia's body ready to receive the donated marrow. During those 2 weeks, Jennifer spent a lot of time with Sophia and her family. She met Sophia's husband, David, a gentleman who looked at his wife with the kind of love that had survived years of illness and fear. She met the children, Emily and Marcus, who were shy at first but warmed up quickly, especially when they learned that Lucas was going to help their mother. Is the baby going to be a superhero? Emily asked. In a way, yes, Jennifer said. He's going to give your mommy some of his special cells that will help her fight the bad sickness. Will it hurt him? He'll be sleeping the whole time, so he won't feel anything. And he'll be a little sore after, but he'll be okay. Marcus, the 9-year-old, looked at Lucas with awe. He's really little to be a superhero. Sometimes the best heroes are the ones you least expect, Sophia said, ruffling her son's hair. The night before the procedure, Jennifer held Lucas in the apartment Walter had given them, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the impossible chain of events that had led to this moment. If she hadn't gotten pregnant, if her boyfriend hadn't left, if her parents hadn't kicked her out, if she hadn't ended up at Memorial General that rainy day, if Walter hadn't stopped to talk to her, if she had listened to Miss Thornton and given Lucas up for adoption, none of this would be happening. It was like her entire life had been leading to this moment, this chance to save someone. This opportunity to prove that keeping Lucas wasn't selfish at all, but somehow part of a bigger plan she couldn't have seen at the time. The procedure went exactly as Dr. Kim had promised. Lucas was under anesthesia for just over an hour. When he woke up, he was cranky and sore. But by that afternoon, he was playing and smiling like nothing had happened. Sophia's transplant was more intense. The chemotherapy required to prepare her body for the new marrow left her weak and sick. But the transplant itself went smoothly, and within days, Lucas's cells were beginning to engraft and multiply in Sophia's bone marrow. 3 weeks after the transplant, Dr. Kim called Jennifer with an update. The engraftment is proceeding better than we could have hoped. Sophia's blood counts are rising steadily. It looks like her body has accepted Lucas's marrow completely. So she's going to be okay. If things continue this way, yes, she'll need to be monitored closely for the next year, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we've beaten this cancer. Jennifer cried when she hung up the phone. Happy tears, grateful tears. Tears of relief and wonder and disbelief that her baby, her Lucas, had saved someone's life. A month after the transplant, Walter invited Jennifer to dinner at his home. She dressed Lucas in his nicest outfit and drove to the address he had given her, a beautiful house in an exclusive neighborhood that she would never have imagined entering a year ago. Sophia answered the door, looking dramatically different from the pale, weak woman Jennifer had met in Walter's office. Her color had returned. She had gained weight. She moved with energy instead of exhaustion. "Jennifer, come in! And oh my goodness, Lucas has gotten so big!" The house was filled with people. Walter and his wife, whom Jennifer was meeting for the first time. Sophia's husband and children, extended family members, even some of the staff from Chen Industries. "What is all this?" Jennifer asked. "This," Walter said, raising a glass, "is a celebration of life, a celebration of impossible miracles, a celebration of a young mother who refused to give up, and a baby who saved the day." Everyone raised their glasses. Emily and Marcus came running over to Lucas, who was now 10 months old and just starting to pull himself up to stand. "That's the superhero baby," Emily announced proudly. Over dinner, Jennifer learned more about the family she had helped save. Sophia had been diagnosed with leukemia 5 years ago, right after Marcus was born. She had fought through multiple rounds of chemotherapy, a partial remission, and then a devastating relapse. The bone marrow transplant had been her last hope. "The doctors told us to prepare for the worst," David said. "They said finding a match was nearly impossible, and that even if we did, there was no guarantee it would work. But Lucas's marrow was so perfectly compatible that it gave Sophia the best possible chance. And it worked," Sophia added, squeezing Jennifer's hand. "I'm here because of your son, because of your decision to keep him even when everyone told you not to." "Speaking of which," Walter said, "I want to make a toast to Jennifer, who showed more courage and determination in her 19 years than most people show in a lifetime, who refused to believe that poverty meant powerlessness, who fought for her son when everyone told her she was making a mistake, who proved that sometimes the people society dismisses as problems are actually the solutions we desperately need." Everyone raised their glasses. Jennifer felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment and pride. After dinner, while the children played with Lucas in the living room under the watchful eyes of grandparents, Walter pulled Jennifer aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing her an envelope. "Walter, you've already done so much for me. I don't need anything else. Open it." Inside was a check for $100,000. "Walter, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. And you will. That money is not payment for what Lucas did. You can't put a price on saving someone's life. This is an investment in your future and his future. College fund, down payment on a house, whatever you need to build the life you deserve." Jennifer stared at the check, unable to process the number. "This is too much." "It's not nearly enough, but it's a start." Walter smiled. "Jennifer, you need to understand something. When I met you on that bench a year ago, I saw someone who reminded me of myself. Someone with nothing but determination. Someone the world had written off. I wanted to help you because I remembered what it felt like to be in that position. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that helping you would end up saving my daughter's life. I still can't believe Lucas was a match. What are the odds? Dr. Kim says it's essentially a miracle. The genetic compatibility required is so specific, so rare, that most people never find a match outside their immediate family. But somehow, impossibly, your son had exactly what Sophia needed. Sophia joined them, holding a glass of wine. "I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. About the odds. About the coincidence." "What do you mean?" Jennifer asked. "Think about it. My father happens to be at the hospital the day you're there. He happens to see you crying. He happens to stop and talk to you instead of walking past like most people would. He happens to help you, which leads to you getting a job at his company, which leads to you being nearby when I need a donor, which leads to Lucas being tested. That's a lot of coincidences. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it wasn't coincidence at all. Maybe it was meant to happen this way. Maybe you were meant to keep Lucas. Maybe he was meant to save me. Maybe the whole thing was part of some bigger plan we can't see. Jennifer looked across the room at Lucas, who was laughing as Marcus made funny faces at him. Ms. Thornton, the social worker, she said I was being selfish by keeping him. She said he deserved a better life than I could give him. She was wrong, Walter said firmly. You gave him the best life possible. A life with a mother who loves him. A life where he got to be a hero before his first birthday. A life with purpose and meaning. And what about those adoption papers she left for you? Sophia asked. The ones you tore up? How did you know about those? My father tells me everything. If you had signed those papers, Lucas would be with another family right now. He wouldn't have been available to be tested as a donor. He wouldn't have been able to save me. The weight of that alternative reality hit Jennifer like a physical force. If she had given in to the pressure, if she had believed everyone who told her she wasn't good enough, Sophia would be dying right now. Emily and Marcus would be losing their mother. Walter would be losing his daughter. I almost did sign them, Jennifer admitted quietly. That first week at the shelter, when Lucas wouldn't stop crying and I had no money and nowhere to go. I actually dug the papers out of the trash and sat there with a pen in my hand. What stopped you? Sophia asked. Lucas grabbed my finger, just reached out and wrapped his tiny hand around my finger and held on. And I thought, he's holding on to me because he knows I'm his mother. How can I let go of him? So I tore up the papers again and threw them away for good. Best decision you ever made, Walter said. Best decision that saved my life, Sophia added. 6 months after the transplant, Dr. Kim declared Sophia to be in complete remission. The cancer was gone. Lucas's donated marrow had rebuilt her immune system from the ground up, creating healthy new blood cells that showed no signs of leukemia. The celebration was huge, a party at Walter's house with everyone who had been part of Sophia's journey to recovery. Jennifer brought Lucas, who was now 15 months old and walking unsteadily, his chubby hands reaching for everything, his vocabulary expanding to include Dada for David and So-So for Sophia. He's calling me So-So, Sophia exclaimed with delight, scooping Lucas up and spinning him around. That's my superhero. Emily and Marcus had adopted Lucas as their unofficial little brother. They played with him constantly, teaching him new words, showing him how to stack blocks, reading him picture books with exaggerated enthusiasm. Can Lucas come live with us? Emily asked at one point. Lucas lives with his mama, Sophia explained gently. But we can visit them any time we want. Why doesn't his mama live with us too? It was an innocent question from a 7-year-old, but it made Jennifer realize how much her life had become intertwined with this family. She saw them at least once a week. Lucas played with the kids regularly. She had dinner with Sophia and David frequently. Walter had become a grandfather figure not just to Lucas but to her as well, offering advice on everything from career decisions to parenting challenges. They had become her family, the family she had lost when her parents rejected her, the support system she had thought she would never have. I have some news, Jennifer announced during the party. I've been accepted into the evening MBA program at State University. I'm going to get my degree. The room erupted in applause. That's wonderful. Sophia hugged her tightly. When do you start? Next semester. It's going to be hard, working full-time and going to school at night, but I can do it. Of course you can, Walter said proudly. And if you need any help with Lucas during evening classes, you know where to find babysitters. He gestured to Emily and Marcus, who cheered enthusiastically. 2 years after that first meeting on the hospital bench, Jennifer graduated from the training program at Chen Industries and was promoted to senior accountant. She was making enough money to move into a larger apartment, to buy a reliable car, to put money into savings every month. Lucas was in an excellent preschool, thriving and happy, with friends and routines, and a stability that Jennifer had only dreamed about when she was pregnant and homeless. On the anniversary of Sophia's transplant, the whole family gathered at Walter's house for what had become an annual celebration. Lucas was now 3 years old, talking in full sentences, playing elaborate games with Emily and Marcus, completely unaware that he had saved someone's life before he could even walk. "Speech time," Emily announced, banging a spoon against a glass like she had seen adults do. Walter stood up, raising his glass. 3 years ago today, we didn't know if Sophia would survive another month. The doctors had told us that, without a perfect bone marrow match, her chances were almost 0. And then a miracle happened. A little baby, born to a mother everyone had written off, turned out to be the exact genetic match we needed. He looked at Jennifer with emotion in his eyes. "Jennifer, when I met you, I thought I was helping you. I thought I was the one doing the good deed. But it turned out you were the one helping me. You and Lucas saved my daughter's life. You gave my grandchildren their mother back. You gave me more time with my child. There are no words for what that means." "Hear, hear!" Everyone cheered. Sophia stood up next. "I want to add something. Jennifer, you've heard me say thank you 1,000 times. But I want you to know that it's not just about the bone marrow. It's about what you represent. You could have given up when you were pregnant and alone. You could have listened to everyone who told you that you weren't good enough to be a mother. You could have signed those adoption papers and let someone else raise Lucas. But you didn't. You fought. You believed in yourself when no one else did. And because of that, because of your strength and courage, I'm alive today." Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face. "I was just doing what any mother would do. Trying to take care of my son." "No," Sophia corrected gently. "You were doing what a great mother would do. Fighting against impossible odds, refusing to give up. Believing that love was more important than money or stability or any of the things people said you needed. And you were right." Later that evening, after most of the guests had left and the kids were playing in the next room, Jennifer found herself alone with Walter in his study. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. That day we met, on the hospital bench. You said you stopped because you couldn't leave a pregnant woman crying in the rain, but was it really just coincidence that you were there?" Walter smiled. "What do you think?" "I think you spend a lot of time at that hospital. I think you see a lot of people in difficult situations. I think you were looking for someone to help. Was it me specifically, or would you have stopped for anyone?" "Honest answer? I don't know. I saw you and something told me to stop. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was just an old man's instinct that you were someone special. Does it matter? I guess not. I'm just grateful you did stop. I'm grateful you let me help. A lot of people in your situation would have been too proud to accept assistance from a stranger. I was too desperate to be proud. Lucas needed help. That was more important than my ego. And that's what makes you a good mother. Putting his needs first." Walter pulled out another envelope. "Speaking of which, I have something else for you. Walter, You've already given me so much. This isn't from me. This is from the company. Your performance reviews have been exceptional. Your managers say you're one of the best accountants we've ever had. So the board approved a promotion. You're now Director of Financial Analysis. It comes with a significant raise and stock options. Jennifer stared at the promotion letter. Director? But I'm only 21. I don't even have my MBA yet. You don't need an MBA to be brilliant at what you do. The degree will be nice to have, but it's not what makes you valuable. Your intelligence, your work ethic, your integrity, those are what make you valuable. And those things you've had all along. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept the position and continue making us proud. Of course I accept. Thank you, Walter, for everything, for believing in me when no one else did, for giving me a chance, for changing my life. You changed your own life, Jennifer. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it and made something of yourself. That night, driving home with Lucas sleeping in his car seat, Jennifer thought about the past 3 years, about how close she had come to giving up, about all the people who had told her she was making a mistake, about Ms. Thornton's adoption papers and her parents' rejection and her boyfriend's abandonment. And she thought about how every single one of them had been wrong. She had been good enough. She had been strong enough. She had been capable enough. Not because she had money or education or a support system, but because she had loved her son enough to fight for him, even when the entire world was telling her to give up. And that love had not only saved her life, and Lucas's life. It had saved Sophia's life, too. 3 years later, Jennifer graduated with her MBA, with Walter, Sophia, and both their families in the audience, cheering as she walked across the stage. Lucas, now 6 years old, sat between Emily and Marcus, waving enthusiastically every time he saw his mother. The next day, Jennifer was offered a position as Chief Financial Officer at a smaller company that Chen Industries had invested in. It was a huge responsibility, running the finances for an entire corporation, but Walter assured her she was ready. "You've been preparing for this your whole life," he said. "Every challenge you've faced, every obstacle you've overcome, all of it has been training for leadership. You know what it's like to have nothing. That gives you perspective that most executives lack. You know how to fight when things are hard. That gives you resilience. You know how to make something out of nothing. That gives you creativity. You're going to be an exceptional CFO." On her first day in the new position, Jennifer walked into her corner office, sat down at her desk, and looked out at the city skyline. She thought about the girl who had sat on that hospital bench 6 years ago, pregnant and alone and terrified, being told by everyone that she wasn't good enough to be a mother. She thought about Ms. Thornton, who had pushed so hard for adoption, who had called Jennifer selfish for wanting to keep her baby. She wondered where Ms. Thornton was now, if she was still working at the hospital, still counseling young mothers, still telling them they weren't enough. As if summoned by the thought, Jennifer's assistant knocked on her door. "Ms. Collins, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Her name is Rebecca Thornton." Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. "Send her in." Ms. Thornton entered the office looking older than Jennifer remembered, her gray hair now white, her face lined with years of stress. She looked around the spacious office with obvious surprise. "Jennifer, is it really you?" "Hello, Miss Thornton." "Please, sit down." Miss Thornton sat, still looking confused. "I heard that the new CFO of this company had the same name as a girl I used to work with, but I never imagined. How is this possible?" "Hard work, support from good people, and refusing to believe that poverty meant powerlessness. I don't understand. The last time I saw you, you were in a homeless shelter with a newborn baby. How did you go from that to this? She gestured around the office. I made choices. I got opportunities. I took advantage of them. But mostly, I didn't give up, even when you told me I should. Miss Thornton had the decency to look uncomfortable. Jennifer, about that. I want you to know that I was trying to help you. I thought adoption was the best choice for you and the baby. His name is Lucas. And he's 6 years old now. Happy, healthy, thriving in first grade. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm glad to hear that. Truly. But you have to understand, most girls in your situation don't succeed like you have. Most of them struggle for years, trapped in poverty. Maybe that's because people like you convince them they're not capable of more. Maybe if instead of pushing adoption, you pushed support and resources and belief in their potential, more of them would succeed. Ms. Thornton bristled. That's not fair. I work within the system I have. I can't magically create resources that don't exist. No, but you can choose to see potential instead of problems. You can choose to encourage instead of discourage. You can choose to believe in people instead of writing them off. I've been a social worker for 25 years. I've seen hundreds of cases. I know what works and what doesn't. And I'm living proof that your assumptions don't always hold true. I was everything you said I was. 19, poor, no education, no support, no prospects. By your logic, I should have failed. But I didn't. Why do you think that is? Miss Thornton didn't answer. It's because someone believed in me. Someone saw past my circumstances and saw my potential. Someone gave me a chance. That made all the difference. Not everyone has someone like that. You're right, not everyone does. But you know what they do have? Social workers. People whose job is supposed to be helping them, not convincing them they're inadequate. If you had spent half as much energy helping me find resources as you did trying to convince me to give up my baby, my life would have been a lot easier. Miss Thornton stood up. I didn't come here to be lectured by someone half my age. Then why did you come? I don't know. Curiosity, I suppose. I wanted to see if it was really you. If the homeless teenage mother had really become a corporate executive. I guess I have my answer. She walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I am glad things worked out for you. You're the exception that proves the rule. No, Miss Thornton. I'm the example that proves your rule is wrong. And there are hundreds, maybe thousands, of young mothers out there who could be exceptions too, if people like you would stop writing them off. After Miss Thornton left, Jennifer sat in her office for a long time, thinking about all the young mothers who hadn't been as lucky as she was, who hadn't met someone like Walter on their worst day, who had believed the social workers and the statistics and the people who told them they weren't enough. She picked up her phone and called Walter. I want to start a foundation, she said when he answered. For young mothers, single mothers, poor mothers, mothers without support systems. I want to provide them with housing, job training, child care, all the resources they need to succeed. Everything you gave me, I want to give to them. Walter was quiet for a moment. That's a beautiful idea, Jennifer. But running a foundation is expensive. It's a huge commitment. I know. But I have to do it. I was lucky. I met you at exactly the right moment. But what about all the women who don't meet someone like you? Who don't get that chance? They deserve opportunities, too. You're absolutely right. Let me make some calls. I know people who would want to invest in a cause like this. Between your story and Sophia's recovery, we can generate a lot of interest and funding. 6 months later, the Lucas Foundation officially opened its doors. Named after the baby who had saved a life, the foundation provided comprehensive support to young mothers in crisis. Housing assistance, job training, childcare, counseling, legal aid, everything Jennifer had needed and more. The response was overwhelming. Within the first year, they helped 200 mothers. Within 2 years, they had expanded to 3 cities. Within 5 years, they were operating in 10 states. Jennifer ran the foundation alongside her CFO responsibilities, working 16-hour days, driven by the memory of what she had gone through and the determination that other women shouldn't have to face those same obstacles alone. Lucas grew up understanding that he was special, not just because he had saved Sophia's life, but because his existence had inspired something bigger. The foundation that bore his name was helping thousands of families. On Lucas's 10th birthday, the foundation held a gala fundraiser. The theme was 10 Years of Life, celebrating both Lucas's birthday and Sophia's 10 years of being cancer-free. The ballroom was filled with people whose lives had been touched by the foundation, young mothers who had been helped during their darkest moments, children who were thriving because their mothers had been given a second chance, donors who believed in the mission, staff members who worked tirelessly to make it all possible. Jennifer took the stage to give a speech, with Lucas standing beside her. 10 years ago, she began, I was 19 years old, pregnant, and homeless. I sat on a bench outside this hospital and cried because a social worker had just told me I should give up my baby for adoption. She said I wasn't capable of being a mother. She said I was being selfish for wanting to keep him. She said I would fail. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. And she was almost right. I almost did fail. I almost gave up. I almost signed those adoption papers. But I didn't, because I believed that love was more important than money or education or any of the things people said I needed. I believed that my son deserved a mother who would fight for him, even if that fight seemed impossible. She put her hand on Lucas's shoulder. 10 years later, I can say with certainty that I was right. Keeping Lucas was not selfish. It was the best decision I ever made. Not just for me, but for the world. Because this little boy, who everyone said I wasn't good enough to raise, ended up saving someone's life before he could even walk. Sophia stood up in the audience, healthy and vibrant, and blew a kiss to Lucas. And that miracle inspired something even bigger, a foundation that has helped thousands of mothers who were in the same position I was in. Mothers who were told they weren't enough. Mothers who were pressured to give up. Mothers who were written off by society. We've given them what was given to me. A chance, resources, belief in their potential. And you know what? They've proven over and over again that they are enough, that poverty doesn't equal inadequacy, that struggling doesn't equal failure, that needing help doesn't equal weakness. The room erupted in applause. So tonight, as we celebrate 10 years of life, 10 years of Lucas, 10 years of Sophia's health, 10 years of this foundation, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Walter Chen, who stopped to talk to a crying pregnant girl on a bench when most people would have walked past. Thank you to everyone who has supported this foundation and believed in our mission. And thank you to every mother out there who refuses to give up, who fights against impossible odds, who proves that love really is enough. After the speech, as people mingled and celebrated, Ms. Thornton approached Jennifer. She looked even older now, retired from the hospital but still attending events related to child welfare. That was a powerful speech, she said quietly. Thank you. I was wrong about you. I want you to know that. I judged you based on statistics and probabilities instead of seeing you as an individual with unique strengths. I appreciate you saying that. I've been following the Foundation's work. What you've accomplished is remarkable. You've helped more young mothers than I ever did in 25 years of social work. That's because I understand what they're going through. I've been where they are. I know what it feels like to be judged and dismissed and told you're not enough. Ms. Thornton nodded. I retired last year, but I've been volunteering with organizations that support young parents, trying to do better than I did with you. That's good. We need more people who believe in helping rather than judging. Can I ask you something? That day on the bench, when I gave you those adoption papers, if Walter Chen hadn't come into your life, if you hadn't gotten all that support, do you think you would have succeeded? Jennifer thought about it honestly. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I deserved the chance to try. That's what I want people to understand. Every mother deserves the chance to try. And when we give them real support instead of judgment, most of them succeed. 10 more years passed. Lucas grew into a thoughtful, compassionate young man who volunteered at the foundation that bore his name, mentoring younger children and helping their mothers navigate challenges. He wanted to be a doctor, inspired by the story of how his bone marrow had saved Sophia's life. Sophia's children, Emily and Marcus, now young adults themselves, were deeply involved in the Foundation's work. Emily was studying social work, determined to be the kind of advocate that her family had needed. Marcus was in medical school, following in the footsteps of his great-uncle Michael, the man whose genes Lucas carried. Jennifer, now 41 years old, looked back on her life with a sense of profound gratitude. She had gone from homeless teenager to successful executive, to founder of one of the country's most effective family support foundations. She had raised a son who was kind and brilliant and compassionate. She had proven that poverty doesn't determine destiny. But most importantly, she had shown that sometimes the people society dismisses as problems are actually the solutions we desperately need. Because if she had listened to Ms. Thornton, if she had signed those adoption papers, Lucas wouldn't have been available to save Sophia's life. Sophia would have died. Emily and Marcus would have lost their mother. Walter would have lost his daughter. And thousands of families would never have been helped by a foundation that never would have existed. One decision, made by a scared 19-year-old girl who refused to believe she wasn't enough, had rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. On the 20th anniversary of Lucas's birth, the foundation held another gala. This time, the guest of honor was Lucas himself, now a medical student working on research related to bone marrow transplants and genetic compatibility. Walter, now 94 but still sharp and active, gave the opening remarks. 20 years ago, I met a young woman on a bench outside this hospital. She was crying, pregnant, alone, and convinced that she was going to fail. I told her a story about potential and courage and refusing to give up. I thought I was helping her, but it turned out she was the one who had something to teach me. He looked at Jennifer with tears in his eyes. She taught me that strength doesn't require resources, that courage doesn't require preparation, that love doesn't require perfection. She taught me that sometimes the people who appear weakest are actually the strongest, and she taught me that one person's decision to fight can change countless lives. Jennifer stood to respond, but Walter wasn't finished. Jennifer, you saved my daughter's life by refusing to give up your son. You've saved thousands of families by creating this foundation. You've changed the way society thinks about young mothers in crisis. You've proven that everyone deserves a chance, that potential exists in the most unexpected places, and that belief in people can create miracles. I stopped to talk to you that day because I thought you needed help. But the truth is, we needed you. All of us. The world needed the gift you were about to give it, even though you didn't know it yet. As Jennifer took the stage, she looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by her decision to keep Lucas. Mothers who had been helped by the foundation. Children who were thriving because their mothers had been supported instead of judged. Families that existed because someone had believed in their potential. And she realized that Ms. Thornton had been right about one thing. Not everyone has someone like Walter Chen in their life. But everyone deserves to. And that's why the Lucas Foundation would continue its work, creating more Walter Chens, more believers, more people who see potential instead of problems. Because in the end, that's what changes the world. Not judgment, not statistics, not assumptions about what people can or cannot do, but belief, support. The simple act of giving someone a chance and saying, "You are enough, you can do this, and I'm going to help you prove it." 20 years after sitting on that bench, homeless and terrified, and being told she was making the biggest mistake of her life, Jennifer Collins stood in a ballroom full of people celebrating the decision she had made. The decision that saved Sophia's life. The decision that created a foundation. The decision that helped thousands of families. The decision that proved everyone wrong. The decision to keep her son. And as Lucas stood beside her, now a young man who had saved one life and inspired the saving of thousands more, Jennifer finally understood the full truth of what Walter had told her 2 decades ago. Strength doesn't come from having everything. It comes from fighting when you have nothing. And sometimes the people society tells to give up are actually the ones we need most to hold on, because their refusal to give up might just save us all.